Hello! Today I am recommending middle grade books for boys. So for you, or your son, or your male students, or whatever person you were thinking of when you clicked on this video. If you're a mother who has all daughters, I'm not sure why you're here, but hello, I hope you get something out of this video. This first one is not one that you need me to recommend to you, because the whole world is doing that for me already, but I feel that it needs to be said anyway. Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Obviously, this is a very popular series, and I think it is well deserved. The world is so creative and well developed that it could capture anyone's imagination. The stories are sophisticated enough for any adult to be able to really enjoy it while still being understandable to younger people, and the writing style borders on flawless. Like I said, you don't need me to recommend this to you, but this next book is also a book you probably don't need me to recommend to you, but I'm still going to do it anyway. The Percy Jackson and the Olympian series by Rick Riordan. This book, as you probably already know, follows a boy named Percy as he discovers that his father was a Greek god, and then much chaos and adventures ensue from that point. This story and these characters are so fun and exciting and action-packed that you're completely invested in it until the very last page. Obviously, this is a must-read for any kid who's interested in mythology, especially Greek mythology, and that's all I'm gonna say about it, because again, you don't need another person putting this in your face. Now that I got those two super popular ones out of the way, let's do a more lesser-known one, 100 Cupboards by N.D. Wilson. This book follows a boy named Henry as he gets sent to live with his aunt and uncle and cousins in the country and discovers a series of cupboard doors that lead to different times and places. My least favorite thing about this book is the writing. I thought it was pretty dull, but the story is super magical and mysterious, and if your kid is the type that love to explore nooks and crannies and basements and attics, this book, do it. I will also say that this book gets a little intense at times, so probably not for the more super sensitive children, but I do still highly recommend it for the ones that aren't super sensitive, because it's really good. Next, I have Redwall by Brian Jacques. This book takes place in the Middle Agey times at a monastery-like place called Redwall, which in the course of this book is held under siege by a horde of evil rodents. This book is exciting and adventurous, and the characters are all just wonderful. If your kid is into knights or Middle Agey times, this would be a good book to pick up. This book is pretty big and there's a lot happening in it, so it might be a little bit confusing or intimidating for younger ones, but it's definitely worth reading. I think there are a lot of good themes surrounding the series, and if you aren't going to read the book, then you at least have to watch the TV series, because that's also amazing. I took a bit of a break and then the sun set, so I apologize if the lighting has become less quality. If you've already read and enjoyed Redwall, my next recommendation to you is The Daring Adventures of Penhaligon Brush by S. Jones Rogan. This is my personal favorite book of all time, as you can probably guess by how well loved it is. It has a kind of similar story to Redwall. It has anthropomorphistic characters in it, and it takes place in a medieval-y sort of setting, and the main plot focuses on a siege. But it's also very different in ways. The characters in this book are just absolutely wonderful, and the story is exciting and fun. There are cool illustrations throughout it. It's also not nearly as big or as dense as Redwall is, so it's not quite as intimidating, and it is just a very good book. I highly recommend this one. The next book I have is the 39 Clues series by a multitude of authors. This series follows a brother and sister who are competing against their family in this race to find 39 clues that supposedly lead them to some sort of thing, and they don't know exactly what it is that they're searching for, but they know that whatever is going to be at the end of this 39 clues is going to make whoever wins very powerful. I highly recommend this for boys that aren't that interested in reading, because the books are all super short and super fast-paced and super exciting and eventful. Reading them almost feels like watching a movie. It sort of has Spy Kiddish vibes, sort of. That might be a little bit of a stretch. sex. Places and historical figures play a big part in the whole clue system, and I think anyone who reads this can come out of each book with about a handful more of facts about geography and history than they did before. I'm not saying that they're very educational books, but facts about people and places are a big part of the story, and a couple of them I'm not 100% sure they're completely accurate, but it is a nice addition to the series. Next, I have The Swap by Megan Schull. This book is also going to make an appearance in my middle grade books for girls video because I think boys and girls could equally get a lot out of this book. This is a sort of Freaky Friday-ish book. It follows a middle grade girl named Ellie who thinks that boys have it better, and a middle grade boy named Jack who thinks that girls have it better. One day they find themselves in each other's bodies and have to spend the weekend as the opposite gender. This book is very humorous, not really in the laugh out loud way, but in the yeah, that's kind of funny way. It's a very interesting story and you really want to keep turning the pages. I think there's a lot of things that middle graders can get out of this book. I will say though that this book has a lot of puberty happening in here. So if your kid is not ready to hear about things, then maybe keep your distance. But if they are ready to be reading about sex, then I highly recommend this. The next one is The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White. This book is about a mute trumpeter swan who learns to play the trumpet so he can communicate with his other swan people, and also learns to read and write so he can communicate with humans. I kind of recommend half-heartedly. The first of the reasons of that is because it's been so long that I've read it that I don't remember much about it or have many good things to say about it other than I remember really liking it. The second one being the reason he wants to communicate in the first place is so he can attract a mate. So a stubborn middle grade boy could probably easily shove this off as a romance like I did, even though I still secretly liked it. It certainly is a very interesting story. Obviously the whole concept is very interesting, and I do remember it being a little bit slow paced, so if that's going to be a big no, then maybe don't push this one too hard onto them. I still recommend it because I remember really liking it, and I think it's a really good story that should be read. So yeah, just try it. If you don't like it, don't read it. Next is The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Stelznick. This book follows an orphan named Hugo living in a train station in Paris in the 1930s as he tries to put together a mystery that his father left behind for him. This isn't my personal favorite of the list just because I don't have big taste for historical fiction or for a couple of the tropes used in here, but I think it's still really enjoyable, especially for any boy who loves tinkering or gadgets and gears and stuff like that, because that's a big part of this book. It's also like 70% beautiful illustrations, so it's a very visual and fun and aesthetically pleasing. So I do think that a lot of boys could really get into this. Next is The Spiderwick Chronicles by Tony DiTrizzilli and Holly Black. This series follows 3 siblings as they discover this weird magical field guide that shows them all sorts of weird mythical creatures, and then they start discovering a hidden world surrounding them. This is a really fun series. The books are all short and easy to read. This is a bind-up of all 5 of them. There are cool illustrations, and even though they're all short and easy to read, it's a very exciting and fun and creative story. I definitely recommend for those that are searching in their backyard for mythical creatures, because this series would just be perfect for them. Next is The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. This book follows a boy named Milo who finds life to be very dull and boring until he drives through a magical toll booth that takes him to this very Wonderland-y world. As I just said, this was a very Alice in Wonderland-y like book with its wordplay and its twisted logic, except I feel like it's done in a way that's a little more appealing to boys because it's a male protagonist and the story has a bit of a quest element to it. It's a very fun and interesting story, and I definitely recommend it for Alice in Wonderland fans. And next I have all of Ronald Doll's books. I've read about 5 of this guy's books, and the stories are really creative and there's a lot of boyishness in them, so I think a lot of boys will enjoy his work. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory doesn't get very interesting until about halfway through, but once you get to that point, it is very interesting. The Witches is one of his more interesting works, I think, but it's a little bit darker than the rest of his work. Matilda is my personal favorite, but it's not the most boyish of them, and George's Marvelous Medicine is a good one too, but it's really short. So I would recommend starting with the BFG, because I think it's a good balance between all the pros and cons. It's a very interesting story, and it's about average sized, and it's not quite as dark as The Witches. Now, I'm sorry, but I'm going to finish this video off talking about another super popular book that you don't need me recommending to you, and that is Wonder by R.J. Palico. Wonder follows a boy named Augie with a very deformed face as he ventures into public school for the first time and deals with everyone treating him differently for his face differences. This book is really fun and easy to read. It's told from the point of view of a bunch of different characters, which I personally really enjoy because we get to see not only how his deformation affects him, but other people around him. This might not be the most interesting book for a middle grade boy, but I think it's interesting enough, and I think there is a lot to be gotten from this book. So these are a few books that I think middle grade boys would really enjoy and really get a lot out of. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a few more books on your radar now. Comment down below on what you think is really good for middle grade boys to read. And if I helped you out a little bit, then don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos of this sort. I will have a similar video for middle grade girls soon, and if it's already out, it will be linked in the description, so go check that out. That's all I have to say today. Bye. Rah!